world government.
There's too much to say on that than you may have patience for with me. It's also because of its subjective and underground nature. There's too much that can't really be known. So it's kind of like the question when people ask me as a space buff about aliens.
Yeah.
I have to tell them, look, the very best answer for that is a string of variables that you multiply together, that none of the variables are in any way known, and there's no evidence on the subject. So shut up and leave me alone about it.
Until now. Hey, Commander Fravor in the Tic Tac crap. Have you seen that? The Navy released it. It's from like 2004. They finally released it. And they also released to the public that there's a whole...
I'd be glad to look into it, but I'm not going to dig into a conversation about that stuff because I have no position.
Okay, but here's the thing.
Here, the equation itself spells out real clearly. It's perfectly possible and even probable that life exists in the universe. At what level, any level of complexity of life that has been exposed to us is not available to the general public in any reliable way. There's a huge amount of intentional misinformation, and it makes any debate on the subject moot right from the beginning. So it's really a time waster.
True.
And it's a straight up magnet for trolls.
It's a magnet for like schizophrenics too.
Schizophrenia is a thing that gets thrown around a lot. And one of the first things that people will do when they want to disqualify a competitive thinker is to accuse them of mental illness.
Right, and I wouldn't be the one to do that.
To be of two minds on a subject is not to be schizophrenic.
That's true.
Okay? Because there are competing factors, realistically, in every subject, especially when you get into highly nuanced, complex things. To have a clear and concise mind is always the goal, but it's even said in the Quran that there are parts of the Quran that are obvious, and these are the ones you should act on. And there are parts of the Quran that you will never understand. And you should believe the whole of the Quran, take as a whole, but don't act on this shit you don't understand. And anybody that comes along trying to get you to think their way on the unknowable stuff might just be trying to manipulate you. So you just write them off too, but be nice about it.
Right.
And that's really when it comes down to what should we be thinking about and what should we be doing. It's all about what policy recommendations are best for ourselves and our neighbors around the world, whether they be near us or far from us, because everything ripples back. Every negative deed, every bad idea, every harmful thing comes back at us. And there's times when fighting is straight up legit.
Yeah.
Somebody comes through your door with an axe and a gun, and you're protecting your wife and children, and they don't give you time to negotiate. Shoot the asshole, right? But in reality, most of the time, our best management practices is win-win.
Right.
How do we make the highest percentage fraction of win-win relationships planning all around the world? And if we're really looking at expanding populations into deep space, which is obviously one of the things they started to catch on to in the early 70s, was, oh my God, that fucks up all of our understandings. Right? So they didn't want to go. Look at why NASA, as well funded by people who were amazingly good at marketing, big industry and so forth. Why was it that they made NASA look incredibly boring, technical, ununderstandable, when in a lot of ways it's exciting, dangerous, engaging, doable, because there were unanswered logistical and tactical questions that scared the shit out of the best analysts in the world on all sides. The Russians were scared shitless too. Everybody was. And now we've had 50 years to sort through the data and start to realize that there's a point where you have to stop being cautious, and you're not going to you're not going to get a foolproof answer that doesn't hurt somebody until you start doing some work. But doing practical infrastructure buildup here and in space kills a lot less people and gives a much higher return in the long run.
Yeah, I would agree.
And until we show up with a first contact situation that the general public is aware enough that I can sift through some realistic data on tentacled creatures with 3 sexes, I'm just going to stay off of the the alien thing.
I see what you mean.
What's your name, bro?
Brendan.
Brendan.
Yep.
Well, it's nice to meet you, Brendan.
What's yours?
Yeah.
What's yours?
Darren.
Darren.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. The thing is, my biggest thing is like just a lot of these topics. If you have talked to me about these things like say 3 years ago, I would have said you're freaking crazy. Get the hell out of here.
Yeah, and now look at today.
But the thing is, this whole deep state, the theory of deep state, establishment, world government, it's all kind of the same thing, right? The reveal of this Epstein case, right? Just all the strings, all the spider webs, connections, politicians.
Let me lay a couple of things on the table on the deep state issue. Okay. One, like I said earlier, and I'll expand on it. There's a whole bunch going on that we can easily surmise that there's something going on.
Yeah.
It's like when in school I was handed a cigar box that was painted shut, and everybody in the class was handed the same stuff. And these cigar boxes had different objects inside, and you were supposed to shake them and slide them around and write down your guesses as to what was in them, trade them with other kids in the classroom and write down guesses again and all this kind of thing. And then they opened up all the boxes and see who was right. Most of them were way off, right? Just weird, who knows what was in the box. There's another little bit that I caught in a movie that's relevant is The Sum of All Fears. When they talk about the underground relationship between two operatives who are loyal to their countries. They're not really deep state so much as they are one social connection that helps to lubricate top open public deals.
Right.
Because you can't start those conversations in the public.
No, I get it.
You have to start some of those conversations.
There's a lot of tiny gears.
You have to start some of those conversations in private.
I get it.
In very convoluted private ways. And those discussions, just like the telephone game, they work their way up through the interconnections that isn't really a formalized deep state. It's not like you and I have signed a contract to say that you're going to go talk to General so-and-so.
Right.
But that your social group and my social group, which I almost sort of do and don't have, don't really talk together in formal ways much. But there's productive material there.
So here's the thing.
And so there's a lot of guys like me having a lot of conversations with guys like you and girls like other girls and guys like other guys, where these different ideas and the different processing, individuals process what comes in, and they say, oh, I have something to contribute. I can turn this around and toss it back out into the noosphere, into the group of minds talking about things. And maybe something can happen out of that that's good. And God will count some, bonus points towards me and mine that we don't get squished because we tell the world not to squish each other. And then the first question somebody asks when you say don't start squishing each other is, okay, well, what is your plan? What else do you have? Right. So you have to put yourself in the position of the leader of the land as an archetype and say, how would I deal with his problems?
I get it.
And then you spread your solutions.
We can't comprehend.
Well, there's
more,
plenty of stuff we can't comprehend.
I'm speaking on more specifics.
Okay.
Because you seem to have a good knowledge of just the overall encompassment theory behind it, but I'm speaking like particularly on the Epstein case, right?
Okay.
So you look at the Epstein case.
So you have a dead witness.
Yeah.
With a lot of hinky ties.
So you get
and some other witnesses that we kind of know that they were on the hinky side, but we don't really know enough to know why.
So we have people from both Republican stature and Democrat stature, as
Sure.
well as other people from other countries, world politicians that we are supposed.
What are your thoughts on
As a country.
on people who practice professional proactive blackmail?
Professional.
Proactive.
Provide an example.
An example of proactive blackmail is a group of people who are good with blackmail see someone rising in the ranks of social influence or power of some sort, whatever that might be, and they decide
It's not part of their circle, right?
doesn't matter.
Because I'm thinking about.
Just
Trump
hear
right
me
now.
out.
I'm thinking about
Just
Trump
just hear me out,
already.
okay? And let's say that they decide he or she is useful and will be useful in the future if groomed and controlled. So they build a program of attempting to put that person in a recordable blackmail situation. Okay? And then they just bury it and control that person from then on. Now let's look at Trump. One of the reasons I think that he pisses off the left is because he comes from a family in New York that knew all about this stuff from the beginning, and he was warned ahead of time
Right.
not to fall into significant traps.
Yeah.
To be a womanizing asshole is not actionable enough blackmail, especially if you're public about it, and he was.
Right.
And
Yeah.
there's recordings of him saying, no, I don't want to be president. So a person who's unwilling
In the 80s, I've seen that.
a person who's unwilling to be that actionable, useful figure in the future doesn't look tempting to go through the work and risk of exposure
Right.
to blackmail.
Right.
He may know all about it, but something tells me they don't have a whole lot on the guy.
Of course not.
Nothing. If they had anything on the guy, they'd have tried to use it now, because they've been trying everything they could think of. And you look at the apoplectic body language of people attempting to hold still while they're losing their minds.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh,
And the competent leadership that used to be in that party is gone.
yeah. And I would Bill Clinton probably. Maybe even before him. But
My guess is that in a lot of cases, the real minds behind policy are so invisible that even they may not know.
yeah. No. It's
Even the person
Yeah.
who comes up with the ideas that solves everybody's problems may not actually know that anybody gives a shit.
Right. No. I agree. President's just the face.
Not necessarily. He has to be a very capable individual in multiple ways.
In multiple ways, yes.